Good afternoon, I'm Dr. N. Jayalakshmi. Today I'm going to read thyroid disorders in children. Okay. Last class, what we have discussed earlier was AFP. AFP is acute flaccid paralysis. Okay. It is a rapid onset of weakness progressing to maximum severity. Okay. Differential diagnosis for AFP are muscular lesions like hypokalemia and inflammatory lesions of muscles, and then neuromuscular junctions, myasthenia gravis and botulism, and then neural lesions like peripheral and then peripheral neuropathies, and then anterior horn level lesions, they are due to polio and non-polio enteroviruses, then spinal cord lesions due to spinal cord trauma or any compression due to tumor. Okay. Now coming to our topic, today's topic, thyroid disorders in children. Okay. Thyroid gland, it serves as a cosmetic function of giving grace to the contour of neck. Okay, by Wharton, 1656. Today we'll deal with introduction, fetal development, physiology, thyroid hormone studies, congenital hypothyroidism, acquired hypothyroidism, goiter, iodine deficiency disorders, hyperthyroidism, and take-home message. Okay. Anatomy of thyroid and parathyroid glands. Okay, actually thyroid gland is a butterfly shaped gland. It consists of two lobes connected by isthmus. Okay, and it is beneath the larynx. Okay, beneath Adam's apple. Okay, right lobe and left lobe connected by isthmus. Okay, and it can nearly parathyroid glands. Okay. Coming to fetal development. The fetal thyroid arises from an outpouching of the foregut at the base of the tongue, that is foramen cecum. And it migrates to its normal location over the thyroid cartilage by 8 to 10 weeks of gestation. Then the thyroid bilobe shape is recognized by 7 weeks of gestation, and the characteristic thyroid follicle cell and colloid formation is seen by 10 weeks. So until that 7 to 10 weeks, maternal thyroid hormones, they promote the neural development and they prevent the deleterious effects of hypothyroidism. Okay. Then coming to histological structure of thyroid gland. Okay. Thyroid lobes, they are divided by lobules by fibrous tissue, and then each lobule, it consists of follicles. So follicle is the basic functional unit of thyroid gland. And then this one is colloid. Okay. These SNR cells, and then this one is basement membrane, and then the parafollicular cells, they present adjacent to basement membrane and vascular supply. Okay, and these parafollicular cells, they do not share the luminal space with follicular cells. Okay, what is the role of parafollicular C cells? They secrete calcitonin and they promote calcium homeostasis. Then variations in follicular cell size in relation to activity. In this moderately active cuboidal lining of epithelial cells, then in case of highly active cells, columnar type, and then inactive, they are flattened. Thyroglobulin synthesis occurs from 4 weeks, and then iodine trapping occurs by 8 to 10 weeks, and thyroxine T4 and to a lesser extent triiodothyronine T3 synthesis and secretion occur from 12 weeks of gestation. Hypothalamic neurons synthesize TRH, that is thyrotropin releasing hormone, by 6 to 8 weeks. The pituitary portal vessel system begins development by 8 to 10 weeks, and TSH secretion is evident by 12 weeks of gestation. Coming to physiology of thyroid hormone productions. Thyroid peroxidase is the rate limiting enzyme in thyroid hormone synthesis. This is controlled by TSH. TSH is thyroid stimulating hormone. Most T3 in the circulation is produced by peripheral conversion of T4 by the enzyme monodeiodinase. In case of conditions like chronic malnutrition, acute illness, and starvation, there is decreased conversion of T4 to T3. to decrease oxygen consumption and then to promote catabolism. Okay. Then T3 levels are the last to fall in hypothyroidism and they are not a reliable indicator of the disease. Okay. Peripheral conversion of T4 to T3 happens due to D1 receptors. They are mainly in thyroid and brain. Okay. And then other sites where it conversion of T4 T3 is liver and kidney. So when there is hypothyroidism, T4 is converted to T3. There is compensation of T3. Okay. As a result, T3 levels, they are the last to fall in hypothyroidism and these are not a better indicator of the disease. The role of thyroid hormones is in the regulation of somatic and intellectual growth, intermediary metabolism, and thermoregulation. We'll discuss the steps and synthesis and release of thyroid hormones now. Okay. NIS is sodium iodine symport. Okay. First thing is after ingestion of iodide, what are the sources of iodide? Sea fish, milk, bread. Okay. And there is iodine trapping occurs and then this one is inhibited by thiocyanates and methimazole. Okay. Next, thyroglobulin synthesis. Thyroglobulin is produced from rough endoplasmic reticulum and then it is stored in Golgi apparatus and then it is released in colloid. Okay. Next, 3 is oxidation of iodine. For oxidation of iodide to iodine, pendrin gene is necessary for the transport of iodine. Okay. So if there is deficiency of pendrin gene, it causes Pendrit syndrome. Okay. We'll discuss about this afterwards. And then iodide to iodine, this step is promoted by TSH and then inhibited by thiourea, thiouracil. Next is coupling reactions. Thyroglobulin, it contains tyrosine residues. Okay. Organification of thyroglobulin happens and then there is coupling reaction in that monoiodotyrosines and diiodotyrosines, they are formed. Okay. And then coupling happens, one DIT and one MIT, they form T3 and two DITs, they form T4. Okay. And then there is storage of thyroid hormone in colloid. Next is the take-up of colloid by epithelial cell by endocytosis by production of pseudopodia. Okay. And then there is formation of colloid vesicle and then there is release of T3 and T4 after proteolysis. And next there is diffusion of T3 and T4 into capillaries. Coupling reactions to form T3 and T4. Thyroglobulin, it has 140 tyrosine residues and then monoiodotyrosines in presence of TIT, they form thyroglobulin, triiodothyronine and then two DITs, they form thyroxine. Okay. Then assessment of thyroid function. But to assess thyroid function, we need to know the normal values of TSH and T3 and T4 according to age norms. Okay. According to age also, these hormones, they vary. In newborns, there is these levels, they are higher and then they decrease by 1 week and then they decrease when compared to newborn period by adult size. Okay. TSH is the most sensitive indicator of primary hypothyroidism, but is not as helpful in the diagnosis of central hypothyroidism. Central hypothyroidism lesions, they are hypothalamus and pituitary lesions. Okay. When these are involved, TSH is decreased. Okay. Whereas in case of primary hypothyroidism, TSH is increased. Okay. So by this we are missing central, only by TSH assays we are missing central hypothyroidism. And then T4 level is a better indicator of thyroid status than T3. We discussed earlier regarding this. And then estimation of free thyroid hormone is superior to total levels in the diagnosis of hypothyroidism, because that total thyroid hormone, it varies according to binding to globulin and albumin proteins. Okay. Serum thyroxine binding globulins. There is decreased thyroxine binding globulin in presence of androgens, anabolic steroids, glucocorticoids, hepatocellular disease, severe illness, protein losing nephropathies, protein losing enteropathies, nicotinic acid, and L-asparaginase. Then increased thyroxine binding globulin in estrogens, selective estrogen receptor modulators, pregnancy, hepatitis, porphyria, heroin, methadone, and then mitotane, 5-fluorouracil, perfenazine. Thyroglobulin, it is more during neonatal period, and after that it decreases. Okay, for everything we have to take the age reference values. Okay, then TSH. During prematurity, there is only quantitatively decreased levels of hormones. There is no difference in qualitative. First week of life, 0.7 to 27, and then at birth term, it is 1 to 17.6. Then it decreases as it approaches adults. Then thyroxine binding globulins. At the time of birth, it's 1.4 to 9.4. By adulthood, it decreases. Then thyroxine total. Okay. What happens is there is increased TSH during birth. As a result, that surge, it lasts for 48 hours, and then it causes more production of T3 and T4. As a result, T3 and T4, they are higher during first 48 hours, and then they slowly decrease at 1 week and then at 1 month. And then free T4, same as total thyroxine. Okay. And then triiodothyronine, free, we are at birth, it is 20 to 240, and then it reaches maximum 180 to 760, and then afterwards it decreases. Reverse triiodothyronine, it is higher during intrauterine period, and then from birth it decreases. Triiodothyronine total, it is 30 to 70 nanogram per deciliter at birth, and then T3 levels, they increase. So depending on TSH, T4 levels, T4 and T3 levels, we have to distinguish as hypo or hyperthyroidism. Okay, when there is low free T4 and TSH levels, it goes with central hypothyroidism. And then low free T4 and high TSH indicates primary hypothyroidism. Primary hypothyroidism means thyroid lesions. Okay. Then if there is persistent elevation of TSH in the presence of normal free T4, it suggests subclinical hypothyroidism. Williams syndrome is most commonly associated with subclinical hypothyroidism. Then elevated free T4 and undetectable TSH levels, it suggests hyperthyroid state. Next is in vivo radionucleotide studies. Depending upon iodine trapping and concentrating mechanism, we will distinguish whether there is thyroid gland is present in normal site or ectopic, or whether there is any dysgenesis like that. Okay. So most commonly we'll use iodine 123 and technetium scan. Okay. Iodine 131 we won't use normally, okay? Why? Because it has more half-life of 8 days and then it causes killing of cells, okay? As a result, only for Graves' hyperthyroidism or differentiated thyroid cancer cells, to kill cancer cells, we'll use iodine 131, okay? Then iodine 123, it has half-life of 13 hours. And then it allows doses of radioiodine 0.1 to 0.5 millicuries that are only a fraction of those used in iodine 131. And then technetium 19M, it has half-life of 6 hours, and then there is only iodine trapping is there, but there is no concentration in thyroid. As a result, this is the safest radionucleotide studies in children. And then ultrasonographic studies to determine the location, size and shape of thyroid gland and to assess the solid or cystic nature of thyroid nodules. And it is not as reliable as radionucleotide studies in suspected thyroid dysgenesis, particularly ectopic glands. And it is useful in identifying normal thyroid gland position in children with suspected thyroglossal duct cysts. And then in children with autoimmune thyroiditis, it shows scattered hypogenicity. Next, in case of malignancy, there is capsular invasion and then there is increase in calcifications and then increase in vascularity and hypoechogenicity with irregular margins. All this go in favor of malignancies. Okay. Then coming to hypothyroidism. Thyroid hormones, they are much needed for intellectual and mental development, okay? When these hormones, they are deprived during neonatal period, it causes permanent damage to mental and intellectual development, okay? And these are irreversible, okay? Untreated congenital hepatitis causes devastating intellectual and developmental consequences. Whereas acquired hypothyroidism, it adversely affects growth and school performance. Whereas in adults, if there is hypothyroidism, they present with stillbirths and pregnancies, okay? And then hypothyroidism is caused by defects in hypothalamic pituitary axis known as central hypothyroidism or thyroid gland in case of primary hypothyroidism, or there is peripheral sensitive to thyroxine, okay? Actually, TSH is secreted by hypothalamus and then it's stored in pituitary. So any lesion in hypothalamus and pituitary, it can cause central hypothyroidism. Coming to etiology of hypothyroidism. Primary, that is thyroid, they constitutes most of hypothyroidism. More than 95% it constitutes. And then examples for primary are autoimmune thyroiditis, enzyme defects like trapping, organification, thyroglobulin synthesis, deiodination, iodine deficiencies like endemic goiter, dysgenesis, aplasia, dysplasia, ectopic, thyroid injury due to surgery, radiation and infection, goitrogens in the form of thiocyanates, thienamides, lithium, amiodarine. Then transient causes like maternal TSH receptor blocking antibody, iodine excess and maternal antithyroid drugs. Then secondary or tertiary causes due to hypothalamus or pituitary, they constitute less than 5%. These are example malformations due to septo-optic dysplasia and holoprosencephaly and genetic defects. Next, CNS insults like due to trauma, surgery, radiation, infection. And next, CNS tumors like craniopharyngioma and germinoma. Then peripherally, there is resistance to thyroxine. Coming to congenital hypothyroidism, it is the most preventable cause of mental retardation. So early identification of congenital hypothyroidism, it prevents mental and intellectual morbidities, okay? In that, iodine deficiency is the commonest cause of congenital hypothyroidism in certain parts of India. And then where Iodine deficiency is not there. Their thyroid dysgenesis is the most common etiology. There is increased incidence of thyroid dysgenesis is noted in Down syndrome. Then Pendred syndrome, as we have discussed previously, there is a disorder of Pendrin gene is associated with decreased intracellular transport of iodine, and then sensory neural deafness is there. And then in history, we have to ask history of maternal thyroid disease or ingestion of anti-thyroid medications should be inquired. Then family history of hypothyroidism is there. It suggests dysharmonogenesis. And then if there is recurrent transient hypothyroidism, we have to evaluate maternal TSH receptor antibodies. Okay. And then if the residents in iodine deficiency area, we have to suspect iodine deficiency disorders. Then goiter should prompt evaluation for transplacental passage of antithyroid drugs or disorders of thyroid hormone biosynthesis. And then if there is hypothalamic causes, hypoglycemia, micropenis, and midline facial defects, they are seen. Congenital hypothyroidism, in this you can see depressed spectrum and facial puffiness, and then dull faces. Okay. So these clinical features are, in congenital, there is open posterior fontanelle. Posterior fontanelle closes by the age of 4 months, whereas anterior fontanelle closes by the age of 9 to 17 months. And then presence of umbilical hernia, characteristic edematous faces due to facial puffiness. Then constipation, pallor mostly due to megaloblastic anemia and hypothermia, large tongue, rough dry skin with mottling, hypotonia, large abdomen, along with that lethargy and prolonged physiological jaundice at the time of birth is seen. Okay. Why jaundice is there? Prolonged physiological jaundice due to delayed maturation of glucuronide conjugation. Okay. And symptoms coming to acquired hypothermia, there is only growth and skeletal maturation delay. Okay. So there is growth retardation and delayed skeletal maturation, delayed dental development, delayed puberty, myopathy, and pseudohypertrophy and enlarged cella and pseudotumor cerebri. Okay. Coker-Debris semblance syndrome, it's due to long-standing hypothyroidism, and then there is pseudohypertrophy of muscles giving appearance of athletic appearance due to calf muscles involvement. Okay. And then there is enlarged cella due to thyrotrope hyperplasia. And then pseudotumor cerebri features like headache and visual difficulties due to thyroid, due to cellular extension. Okay. And then thyrotrope hyperplasia. So how do we have to evaluate congenital hypothyroidism? First thing is we have to assess T3, T4 and TSH. So the hormones are T3, T4, they are decreased and TSH is increased, and then we have to do ultrasound and then thyroid scan. Okay. So this flow chart is important. Okay. Congenital hypothyroidism is very important. They can ask you in theory exams. Okay. First thing is if there is no uptake, we have to check with ultrasound findings. If there is no thyroid gland, it suggests thyroid agenesis. If there is normal thyroid gland, it suggests there is antibodies binding to TSH receptor. If it is positive, we have to rule out maternal antibodies against TSH receptor. And then if it is negative, we have to think in terms of defect in sodium iodide transporter, TSH receptor, and TPO or thyroglobulin. And then if there is ectopic uptake, we have to suspect ectopic thyroid. And then increased uptake is seen in dysharmonogenesis and iodine deficiency. So comparison of different forms of primary congenital hypothyroidism. Goiter is seen in iodine deficiency and enzyme defects. Radioactive iodine uptake, it is ectopic thyroid gland. and then high in iodine deficiency, and it is absent in when there is antibody to TSH receptor, then it is normal in enzyme defects. And then urine iodine we have to measure. In case of iodine deficiency, there is very low levels of urine iodine, okay? In other things, it's normal. Then thyroid on ultrasound. In dysgenesis, it is absent. In ectopic, it is absent in normal side. It's present in other sides, okay? And in remaining thing, it's utopic. And then diagnostic investigation for dysgenesis is radionuclide scan. For ectopic is radionuclide scan. For iodine deficiency, we have to measure urinary iodine. And then for TSH receptor antibodies, we have to measure the level of antibodies. And then if it is enzyme defects, we have to evaluate through perchlorate discharge. So what makes the difference between early diagnosis and late diagnosis? Okay. First thing is, if there is central hypothyroidism, we should make cortisol replacement first and then thyroid replacement second. Okay. Otherwise, it will precipitate adrenal insufficiency. Okay. And then in primary hypothyroidism, we have to give thyroxine at a dose of 10 to 15 microgram per kg. Okay. And then it should be free T4 level should be adjusted in upper normal range. And then thyroid replacement should be stopped for 1 month at the age of 3 years in suspected transient congenital hypothyroidism. If it is normal, then we can stop thyroxine. Okay. Next thing is, if early intervention is there during congenital newborn screening, then there is good outcome. Okay. Then there won't be any deleterious effects on intellectual and mental development. Important topic is newborn screening. Okay. There is difficulty in early identification of congenital hypothyroidism and disastrous consequences of delayed diagnosis on mental and intellectual development. And then hypothyroidism is the most known preventable cause of mental retardation in children. Okay. So we should do screening programs at postnatal age of 2 to 4 days. Why? Because previously discussed, TSH, it is increased during first 48 hours, there is surge, and then after 48 hours only, that surge decreases. As a result, increased TSH, increased thyroid hormones are there. Okay. So there are two approaches in newborn screening. They are TSH based approach and then T4 based approach. Most commonly used strategy, it uses TSH, but TSH disadvantages is it misses central hypothyroidism. Okay. And then other approach, T4 based approach, it has the disadvantage of missing compensated hypothyroidism. Okay. Then acquired hypothyroidism. This is the etiological classification of acquired hypothyroidism. Okay. These are autoimmune conditions like Hashimoto's thyroiditis or autoimmune polyglandular syndromes as types 1 and 2. And then autoimmune thyroiditis, they are associated with adrenal insufficiency, type 1 diabetes mellitus, and then hypoparathyroidism. Then drug induced due to excess iodide, amiodarone is most commonly used in cardiac arrhythmias. Then nutritional supplements and expectorants. Then anticonvulsants like phenytoin, phenobarbital, and valproate. Antithyroid drugs like methimazole, propylthiouracil. Miscellaneous like lithium, tyrosine kinase inhibitors, interferon alpha, stavudine, thalidomide, and aminoglutathione. And post-ablative due to irradiation, radioiodine, and thyroidectomy. Systemic infiltrative diseases like cystinosis, Langerhans histiocytosis, and then hemangiomas of the liver due to type 3 iodotyrosine dehydrogenase. Then hypothalamic pituitary disease with multiple pituitary hormone deficiencies like hypothalamic pituitary tumors, example craniopharyngioma, meningoencephalitis, cranial radiation, head trauma, Langerhans cell histiocytosis. Then clinical features we already discussed in compared to congenital hypothyroidism. So the only manifestation will be short stature, okay? And the sequelae of untreated congenital hypothyroidism are short stature and mental retardation, okay? Then most patients with hypothyroidism, they have delayed puberty. However, there is uncontrolled long-standing hypothyroidism. They trigger precocious puberty and galacturia. Why there is precocious puberty? TSH, it has alpha and beta subunits. Alpha subunit is common for utilizing hormone and then follicular stimulating hormone. Okay, so it stimulates FSH. As a result, there is precocious puberty. Then goiter is common. It is associated with Down syndrome, Turner syndrome, celiac disease, and type 1 diabetes mellitus. These are the complications in hypothyroidism. Heart failure due to impaired ventricular systolic and diastolic function, and then there is increased peripheral vascular resistance. There is ventilatory failure due to blunted hypercapnic and hypoxic ventilatory drive, and then hyponatremia due to impaired renal free water excretion and SIADH. Ileus due to bowel hypomobility, medication sensitivity due to reduced clearance rate and increased sensitivity to sedative, analgesics and anesthetic agents. There is hypothermia and lack of febrile response to sepsis due to decreased calorogenesis. Then delirium, dementia, seizures, stupor and coma due to decreased CNS thyroid hormone actions and encephalopathy from hyponatremia and hypercapnia. Then adrenal insufficiency. There is associated intrinsic adrenal or pituitary diseases or reversible impairment of hypothalamic pituitary adrenal stress response. Then there is coagulopathy due to acquired von Willebrand syndrome type 1 and decreased factors of 8, 7, 5, 9 and 10. So when we will evaluate, when anyone comes with severe short stature and mental retardation, we have to suspect congenital hypothyroidism, and then thyroid aplasia and hormone dysgenesis, they may also present lately during adulthood also. And then we have to examine the goiter. If there is round and uniform goiter, it suggests iodine deficiency or dysharmonogenesis. If it is firm nodular goiter, it suggests autoimmune thyroiditis. Then if there is any family history of acquired hypothyroidism, we have to rule out autoimmune thyroiditis. And then with children with central hypothyroidism, we should evaluate pituitary function test and MRI of hypothalamic pituitary region. Then other tests are antibodies to thyroid peroxidase enzyme. Who is she? She is Gigi Hadid and she is American model. Then she is suffering from Hashimoto's. Okay. And then these are other causes of thyroiditis. These are subacute granulomatous thyroiditis or de Quervain's disease. In this, initially there is hyperthyroidism, and then euthyroid, and then hypo, and then after a few months it comes to normal thyroid condition. Okay, it is after viral infection. There is fever and tenderness over thyroid gland. Okay, it is very rare in children. Next is acute suppurative thyroiditis after bacterial infection, most commonly alpha hemolytic streptococci and then Staph aureus. Next, pneumococci. What happens is these are signs of inflammation along with severe pain, tenderness, and then for abscess we have to do incision and drainage. And then if recurrent recurrence of acute separate thyroiditis is seen, we have to rule out pyriform sinus fistula or thyroglossal duct remnants. Okay. And then treatment for this is incision and drainage, and then parenteral IV antibiotics. And then other conditions which present with thyroiditis are tuberculosis, sarcoidosis, mumps, and cat scratch disease. They are rare cause of thyroiditis in children. Okay. Other forms of thyroiditis seen in adults like Riddle's thyroiditis, they are rare in children. Management. We have to supplement thyroxine at a dose of 100 microgram per square meter per day, and on empty stomach thyroxine should be taken. Okay. In long-standing cases, we should treat with 25 to 50% of doses, and then we have to gradually build up every 3 to 4 weeks. Okay. TSH and T4, they comes to normal levels by 1 week and 1 month. Okay. And then during serial blood investigations, we have to see the response of hormones, and then we have to taper or increase thyroxine following on depending on investigations. Okay. And then follow-up should be done for every 3 months during first 2 years of therapy, and then 6 months. For every 6 months, we have to follow. Okay. For subclinical hypothyroidism, it doesn't require any treatment. It is self-resolving. And these are the recommended dose schedule of thyroxine. During neonatal period, 10 to 15 microgram per kg per day. Then first 6 months, 6 to 10 microgram per kg per day. 1 to 5 years, 4 to 6 microgram per kg per day. 5 to 12 years, 3 to 5 microgram per kg per day. Then 12 to 18 years, 2 to 3 microgram per kg per day. And then more than 18 years, 1 to 2 microgram per kg per day. Coming to goiter. Goiter is nothing but enlargement of thyroid gland, okay, or simply thyromegaly. When do you say clinically as thyromegaly? When lateral lobe of thyroid is, when compared to the child terminal fillings of thumb, if it is more, then it suggests goiter. Okay, it can be congenital or acquired. Acquired can be sporadic or endemic, and it can be goiter with diminished, normal, or increased thyroid function. Okay. In hypothyroidism, there is compensated TSH secretion. As a result, there is increase in thyroid glands. Okay. Then there is infiltration in autoimmune thyroiditis, neoplasms, or hemochromatosis. Then there is presence of TSH receptor stimulatory antibody in Graves' disease. Okay. Goitrogens and their mechanisms. Foods. Okay. Cassava, lima beans, linseed, sorghum, and sweet potato, they contain cyanogenic glucosides. They are metabolized to thiocyanates. Okay. They compete with iodine for uptake. Okay. And then cruciferous vegetables such as cabbage, kale, cauliflower, broccoli, turnips, rapeseeds, they contain glucosinates, compete with iodine for uptake by thyroid. Okay. Then soy, millet, these are flavonoids. They impair thyroid peroxidase activity. Okay. So why should know about these goitrogens? In any case of hypothyroidism, okay, these things should be deleted from our diet. Okay. Then industrial pollutants like perchlorate. There is competitive inhibitor of sodium iodine symporter, decreasing iodine transport into the thyroid, and others like disulfides from coal processes. They reduce thyroidal iodine uptake. And then smoking during breastfeeding, it is associated with reduced iodine concentration in breast milk. And then high serum concentration of thiocyanate from smoking. It might compete with iodine for active transport into the secretory epithelium of lactating breasts. Then nutrients like selenium deficiency, it causes accumulated peroxides. It can damage thyroid, and deiodinase deficiency, it impairs thyroid hormone activation. Next, iron deficiency, it reduces heme-dependent thyroperoxidase activity in the thyroid gland. Next, vitamin A deficiency, it increases TSH stimulation and goiter through decreased vitamin A mediated suppression of pituitary TSH beta gene. And these are the causes of goiter. Inflammatory due to acute suppurative thyroiditis and subacute thyroiditis. Then infiltration due to autoimmune thyroiditis, neoplasm, hemochromatosis, increased TSH levels. In case of dysharmonogenesis, iodine deficiency, and unilateral agenesis or hemiagenesis. Then TSH stimulating antibody in case of Graves' disease and colloid goiter. Okay. Coming to etiology, congenital goiter, it includes maternal antithyroid medications, dysharmonogenesis, and iodine deficiency. Autoimmune thyroiditis is the most common cause in childhood, followed by iodine deficiency, dysharmonogenesis, and Graves' disease. Autoimmune thyroiditis is also known as Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Okay. Then differential diagnosis for these are diffuse nodular goiter, benign adenoma, thyroid cyst, and occasionally a carcinoma. During clinical evaluation, goiter is classified into diffuse and nodular goiter. These either forms coming back to evaluation. Sorry for the interruption. It is divided into diffuse and nodular goiter. These are either can produced by autoimmune thyroiditis and colloid goiter. And then if there is acute painful thyroid enlargement, we have to rule out hemorrhagic or active inflammation. Then if there is firm goiter, chronic lymphocytic thyroiditis, multinodular goiter, it's such as chronic lymphocytic thyroiditis, iodine deficiency, and colloid goiter. If there is isolated enlargement of one lobe, it suggests hemiagenesis. Then in case of benign cyst, there is well circumscribed nodule. And in case of malignancy, there is single firm or hard, painless irregular nodule. Then there is diffuse goiter in newborn. It can be due to Graves' disease, dysharmonogenesis, or goiterogenic drugs. Investigation should include thyroid function test, anti-TPO antibodies, ultrasound, and FNAC. Okay. Management. In case of Graves' disease, we have to give antithyroid medications, and in case of hypothyroidism, we have to supplement with thyroxine. Then children with autoimmune thyroiditis should be followed with annual thyroid function tests, even though these thyroid hormone levels are normal, they are in high risk of hypothyroidism. Okay. Then there is early trial of thyroxine at a dose of 100 to 200 microgram daily in physiological goiter. It can reduce at 30% by the end of 2 years. Okay. Surgery should be avoided unless it is causing respiratory embarrassment. Next, coming to iodine deficiency disorders. The term iodine deficiency disorders, it refers to the wide spectrum of effects of iodine deficiency on growth and development. These include endemic goiter, endemic cretinism, impaired mental function in children, and in adults with goiter and increased rates of stillbirth and perinatal and infant mortality. Endemic goiter, it does not differ from non-toxic diffuse sporadic goiter. Endemic goiter is graded by the method of WHO. This one is important table. Okay. Estimation of thyroid size by palpation by WHO method. Stage 0, no goiter. Stage 1A, goiter is detectable only by palpation and not visible, okay, even though it is fully extended. Stage 1B, goiter palpable but visible only when the neck is fully extended. Then stage 2, goiter is visible when neck is in normal position, palpation not needed for this diagnosis. And then stage 3, very large goiter which can be recognized at a considerable distance. Endemic cretinism, it constitutes endemic goiter along with iodine deficiency disorders. So there are two types of endemic cretinism. Okay, they are neurological and myxedematous cretinism. Okay, in neurological cretinism, there is deaf mutism, deaf, squint, and then proximal spasticity and rigidity more in lower extremities, and there is disorders of stance and gait with preservation of vegetative functions, and then occasional signs of cerebellar or oculomotor disturbances and severe mental deficiency is seen. Next, coming to myxedematous cretinism, there is retarded psychomotor development, severe short stature, coarse facial features, and myxedema without deaf and mutism. The pathogenesis is poorly understood. Okay. Then classification of severity of iodine deficiency. We'll take these parameters into consideration. First thing is median urine iodine microgram per liter, and then goiter prevalence, then neonatal TSH more than 5 international units per ml, then cretinism. Okay, when do you say goiter is prevalent in that area? When there is more than 5% of cases, then it suggests endemic goiter. Okay, coming to median urine iodine levels. In case of when there is no iodine deficiency, it's more than 100. In case of mild deficiency, it's 50 to 99. In case of moderate, it is 20 to 49. And in case of severe, it is less than 20. Then goiter prevalence, it is less than 5 in non-endemic areas. And then in case of mild deficiency, it is 5 to 20. Moderate deficient areas, 20 to 30%. And severe deficient areas, it comes to more than 30%. Then neonatal TSH. If there is no iodine deficiency, it constitutes less than 3%. In case of mild, it constitutes 3 to 20%. In case of moderate, 20 to 40%. And in case of severe iodine deficiency, more than 40%. Then cretinism. Cretinism is present in moderate and severe types of iodine deficiency. Prevention and control. Okay. Prevention is best way for of iodine deficiency disorders rather than treatment of hypothyroidism. Okay, because even though we supplement or treat these goiters, there is only improvement in hypothyroidism. There won't be any improvement in neurological manifestations. Okay? So nowadays, iodinated salt or iodinized oil, these are highly efficacious in preventing iodine deficiency. Surgical removal of large goiter is indicated only to relieve airway obstruction or for cosmetic reasons. Okay. What are the sources of iodine? Sea fish, milk, and bread. Okay. And then what is the RDA for children until 10 years? It is 40 to 120 micrograms. For older children, 150 micrograms. And then during pregnancy and lactation, additional 25 to 50 micrograms. And then coming to hyperthyroidism. It's most commonly seen in young girls due to Graves' disease. Okay. Etiology of hyperthyroidism. Infancy due to transplacental passage of thyroid antibodies, then TSH receptor activating mutation, then after infancy due to Graves' disease, then release of preformed thyroid hormones due to subacute thyroiditis, due to inflammation of thyroid capsule, there is leakage of hormones. Okay? Then toxic thyroid nodule, toxic multinodular goiter, iatrogenic and pituitary resistance to T3. Okay? These are the manifestations of hyperthyroidism. Symptoms are hyperactivity, irritability, altered mood, insomnia, anxiety, and poor concentration. Then heat intolerance, increased sweating, palpitations, fatigue, weakness, dyspnea. There is weight loss with increased appetite. Weight gain is only seen in 10% of patients. Pruritus, increased stool frequency, thirst, polyuria, oligomenorrhea, or amenorrhea. In case of hypothyroidism, menometrorrhagia is seen. Okay. Then signs are sinus tachycardia, atrial fibrillation, supraventricular tachycardia, and then fine tremors, hyperkinesis, hyperreflexia, warm moist skin, palmar erythema, onycholysis, hair loss or thinning, osteoporosis, muscle weakness and wasting, high output failure, heart failure, and then chorea, periodic paralysis, then psychosis. Thyroid hormones, they have a role in positive nitrogen balance. Okay. Can anyone identify who she, or at least from what disease she is suffering from? She is Wendy Williams. She is suffering from Graves' disease. Okay. Graves' disease is usually seen in the age group of 11 to 15 years. Most commonly in girls, it is seen. Okay. These are the manifestations: diffuse goiter, ophthalmopathy, a feeling of grittiness, discomfort in the eye, retrobulbar pressure or pain, eyelid lag or retraction, periorbital edema, chemosis, scleral conjunctive injection, exophthalmos, extraocular muscle dysfunction, exposure keratitis, optic neuropathy, localized dermopathy is rare in children, lymphoid hyperplasia, and thyroid acropathy, it is rare in children. Okay. Then conditions associated with Graves' disease are type 1 diabetes mellitus, Addison's, vitiligo, pernicious anemia, alopecia areata, myasthenia gravis, celiac disease. These are all autoimmune conditions. In this picture, you can see the goiter and then exophthalmos. Okay. In this primary gaze, there is retraction of upper eyelid. Okay, it's known as Dahlgren sign. Then diagnosis is confirmed by demonstration of elevated serum free T3 and free T4. And then the presence of goiter, infiltrative eye signs, and hyperthyroidism. These are suggestive of Graves' disease. And then absence of goiter should raise the possibility of transient hyperthyroidism as part of autoimmune thyroiditis. TSH levels, they are undetectable in Graves' disease. Ultrasonogram and then nuclear scan for radioactive iodine uptake are helpful in diagnosing toxic nodule or diffuse goiter. Then coming to thyroid crisis or thyroid storm. It's a form of hyperthyroidism manifested by severe biochemical derangements with acute onset of hyperthermia, tachycardia, heart failure, and restlessness. There may be rapid progression to delirium, coma, and death. Precipitating events include trauma, infection, radioactive iodine treatment, or surgery. Then apathetic or masked hyperthyroidism is another variety with presenting with extreme listlessness, apathy, and cachexia. Coming to treatment of hyperthyroidism, we have to treat with antithyroids drugs gradually, but they don't have any role in during acute phase. Why? Because there is lag period for onset of action. Then propyl thiouracil is contraindicated in children due to hepatotoxicity presenting as liver failures. Okay. Then treatment should be started with methimazole at the dose of 0.5 to 1 mg per kg per day. Okay. We discussed previously methimazole where it acts over thyroid peroxidase enzymes. Okay. And then beta blockers, propranolol 2 mg per kg per day in 2 divided doses in ameliorating of sympathetic symptoms. Why we should beta blockers? Thyroid hormones, they increase catecholamine-like effects. Okay, and then as a result, to ameliorate this, we need to give beta blockers. Then iodinated contrast like idopatate 0.001 microgram per kg per day and Lugol's iodine in reversing features of hyperthyroidism. When there is refractory cardiac failure, we have to support with dialysis and then surgery and radioiodine ablation if there is failure of medical treatment. And then with large or toxic nodular goiter, we have to go for partial or total thyroidectomy. And then radioiodine 131 is increasingly used in the management of childhood Graves' disease. As we have discussed earlierly, the half-life of radioiodine 131 is 8 days. And then coming to management of thyroid storm in adolescents. To inhibit thyroid hormone formation and secretion, we have to use propyl thiouracil 400 mg. And then to sympathetic block, we have to use propranolol at the dose of 20 to 40 mg every 4 to 6 hours or 1 mg IV slowly. Then glucocorticoid therapy, prednisolone 20 mg BD, and then supportive therapy in the form of intravenous fluids, and then temperature control, oxygen if necessary, and then dialysis in case of refractory failure, and then treatment of precipitating events like infections. Then coming to last topic, congenital hyperthyroidism. When mothers are suffering with previous history or concurrent during pregnancy, if they are with Graves' disease, fetal thyrotoxicosis is seen. Okay. During intrauterine life, they can present with fetal tachycardia and goiter. Okay. Management includes maternal antithyroid drugs and digitalization. Treatment should include antithyroid drugs, propranolol, and corticosteroids. The condition is self-limiting and it resolves over 3 to 6 months. If the condition is not resolving by this age, we have to suspect family history of hyperthyroidism. And these are the references. And next, take-home message is, when a newborn is delivered, we have to do congenital screening for hypothyroidism to prevent deleterious effects on growth and intellection. Okay, thank you.